good night tonight. I just wanted to share a tiny bit about my employment journey and then introduce Alisha. So, as you guys are aware, just by what just happened, where Alisha had to leave me up here, I am completely blind, and I have some other disabilities, but they're not worth mentioning at this moment. The blindness is the biggest one. What?
We love you anyway.
I don't know who said that. But
That was Dana.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So ever since I was young, we always, as young people, were told, go get a job, go do school, go have yourself a life, and go and make yourself a fulfilling life. And as people with disabilities, we often struggle to meet those expectations. It's not because of the fact that we can't do it, it's because of the fact that society puts expectations on us that are lower than what we expect of ourselves. So, I was expecting to fully get a job and, to just have no issues. Get a resume, get a job, bang, 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 have no issues. But because of my disability, I would apply and I would say in my resume or on my application that I'm blind, and most times I never heard anything back. And if I did hear something back, it was, I'm sorry, we're not going forward with your application at this time. And of course they didn't say it was because I was blind, but sometimes you just know, deep down in the pit of your stomach, you just kind of know. And I had one experience where I got employed at the Salvation Army Kettles, and I worked there for a couple of shifts, but then I had some mental health struggles and was let go from that position. But after that, I guess that was really my first step into the employment for the workforce. And after that, I struggled a lot to find a job. I had people say, well, what can you do for a company? You can't do a cash register, you can't serve food at McDonald's. I was living with my parents in their town, and I had an interview with McDonald's. And they called me and they said, we're willing to give you an interview right now in 20 minutes. If you can come down in 20 minutes, we'll give you an interview. I said, okay, I just want to let you know, I'm totally blind. And you could hear the phone just went silent. She was just so I was I'm totally blind, and this happened. And then she goes, so I don't think there's much we can offer you here. I don't know what you'd do for us. I said, well, and before I got a chance to tell her what I could do, she said, you can't use the fryers because we're afraid you're going to burn yourself. You can't use the cash registers because those don't talk and they don't have braille. And she wouldn't let me pipe up and say, well, we can work around that and make an accommodation for that. But I was just basically told no. And I went from feeling happy that I got a job interview to, suddenly because of my disability, the job interview was canceled. And this was here in Newfoundland. I'm not gonna state where just because, but this was here in Newfoundland. And I think the biggest thing is I moved on from that, and I got a job for 2 summers with the CNIB, where they saw that disabilities as being equal. So any kind of disability, they encouraged you to apply. So if you had an intellectual disability or physical disability, you were encouraged to use your disability experience to apply for the position I had, which was a youth internship for 2 summers in a row with the CNIB in, my first summer was working with youth with disabilities in Guyana over Zoom. And my second summer was working with people with disabilities in St. Lucia over Zoom. And so, yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say, like, if you're a youth with a disability or anyone with a disability for that matter, don't give up on your dreams, because like one day you will find a spot for you, and maybe you're finding that there's barriers, like maybe you don't fit into certain like jobs because they want a certain thing that you can't do due to your disabilities, but they can provide accommodations for you. And that's what happened at the CNIB for me. They provided accommodations for me to be able to do the job to the best of my abilities. So never give up on your dreams, and you will do well. Now I want to introduce Alisha. She is been with GBCC for a long time. I don't know how many years. How many years, Alisha? Do you know?
6.
6 years?
6 or 7 years?
6 or 7 years.
Yeah,
Even when you were in Beachside.
that was 2 years. That's 4 years up here, so at least 6. Yeah, at least 6.
Oh my God, we were at Beachside longer than 2 years?
I don't know. Some amount of years. But her and I have gotten really close over the past year since I moved here to Springdale. Can't believe it's been a year already. Holy, where does the time go? But she has disabilities herself, and is going to share a bit about her experience with the workforce and how that has shaped her life. So, without further ado, Alyssa.
So hi, I'm Alisha. Before I continue, I would like to take a moment just to acknowledge the land that we are on and the indigenous people who were here before us. So some people call me Wheels. That's a high school nickname. In some settings, I'm called Miss Alisha, which drives me nuts, and they know it. A select few get to call me TT. I get called Nana Pop's girl often. Anyone who knows my grandparents know I'm extremely close with them. Or baby girl, that's mom's name for me. But you can call me Alisha, or whatever you want, I don't care. So I'm 28 years old, my star sign is Gemini, my favorite color is blue, and I grew up right here in good old Springdale. So I have a condition called arthrogryposis multiplex congenita. Who can say that 10 times fast? You can definitely try it later. So rather than using that, I'm going to refer to it as AMC. The word comes from Latin, and loosely it means curved joints present from birth. Almost all of my joints are affected. My wrists, my shoulders, my elbows, my knees, my ankles, hips, all of it. So they have very limited stretch and bend. So my diagnosis is an umbrella diagnosis, in a sense that it can be found along with a lot of other different kinds of conditions. AMC comes in 400 plus different types. So it's found within a lot of other different diagnoses as well. As a general baseline, my condition affects 1 in 3,000 live births. The specific type that I'm suspected to have is called amyoplasia, and that occurs 1 in 10,000 live births. Now, I don't know for sure if that is what I have. Hopefully, as science progresses, I will know more, but I don't really care because it's all the same to me. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my growing up, my high school, and what led me to the workforce, and then my time in the workforce. So growing up in Springdale was a lot of fun. My family was pretty well known, and most people knew who I was. Yep, I'm Wayne and Darlene Young's granddaughter. Yep, Craig is my dad. Elvis, the butcher from Coleman's, yep, he's my uncle. My mom is indeed one of the Weber twins from Beachside. No, my mom is Suzette, not Suzanne. You know how it goes in a small town. That made things very easy. Most people knew at least a little bit about what happened surrounding my grand entrance into the world. Most people just knew I used a wheelchair, and sometimes the adults in my life would carry me places during outings. Not a big deal, right? So it wasn't until I started school that I started having my differences highlighted. As a kid, I attended Indian River Primary School, and there's a couple younger ones here who wouldn't even know that was a thing. So I was a part of the last group of students to attend that school before Indian River Academy merged the kindergarten to grade 6. I had fantastic teachers and even better student assistants. Student assistants are the ones that make the experience for those of us with disabilities. I remember a little bench I would sit on to do my work in kindergarten. I believe my teacher, Miss Young, is actually the one who brought it in, so I didn't have to stay in my chair all the time. I would sit on that and do my work. I also remember a little Catwoman figurine that I was obsessed with. That just randomly came up into my brain when I was writing this, so I had to mention it. Later, a bus driver named Boyce from Southbrook, he seen the need for a new bench because I was growing out of the one that I had. And he built and donated it to me to use for school. I used to sit on it and I would lean forward to write my notes, like down between my legs. So I used that bench right up through grade 12. And I'm very grateful that he took that on. He's no longer with us, but I remember him fondly, and he was a really great guy. Partway through my very first year of school, I was asked to give my very first presentation. I was invited to the grade 3 class to talk about disability and why I was clearly different from the rest of the students. This was an attempt to warm up the older kids at school to somebody looking different. Although it should have never been a child's responsibility to explain things as complex as disability, especially at 5 years old, that is likely what started my love for advocacy and standing up, metaphorically, for those who can't do it for themselves. Thankfully, it was a good experience from what I do remember. I don't think I thought much of it at the time, but looking back now, I was the only person in that school who used an electric wheelchair. I was the only person in the school with a disability who was sitting in a standard, regular old classroom with the rest of my classmates. I needed help with going to the bathroom and eating and changing for outdoor purposes if I needed to put on a coat or take off a coat as an example. But that was just normal. I'd sit with my friends and my student assistant in my classroom, and that was just how it was. From K to 6, things were easy, but it was high school that really sent me for a loop. So adolescence, puberty, and a brand new school. That sounds like a fun combo, hey. Indian River High School. This is a difficult stage for everyone, and I was definitely no exception. I had some additional issues, but everyone goes through their personal struggles. Mine included additional stress with disability, but it never felt like extra because that's all I'd ever known. I've always had this. On my first day, I was so full of hopes and dreams, even at 12 years old when I started grade 7. I was encompassed by wonder and curiosity. I kept friends from elementary school like Julia, Sam, and Jess. We were the best of friends. We were getting in trouble all the time, but they were great. I also maintained a long-distance friendship with a guy named Blake, who really had my back, and he still does today. Along the ride, I gained friendships with Sherry, Nick, Nathan, Natasha, and these people were my lifeline. These were my people. All of my courses, right from the beginning to graduation, were academic. I was an average student complaining about math class, and Mr. Hancock finally skipping off biology, having crushes on the younger substitutes, of course. I completely adored drama class. I made so many new friends in that class, and I also really enjoyed science. Actually, one of my high school science teachers is actually here tonight, Miss Saunders. Thanks for not getting mad at us for definitely knowing that we weren't doing work on my iPad. We were actually playing the game of life, and I can tell you that now. It was grade 7 when I stopped having a student assistant with me in class. They were usually available to me for the bathroom and eating, but I wanted to have recess and lunch with my friends, so my friends would help me. If I wasn't able to eat something on my own, it was no big deal. They'd pick up that cheese stick and stuff it in my face. But sometimes they weren't available as well. So I had different female teachers helping me go to the bathroom, and that was often very uncomfortable. I was a young woman who was developing. I was experiencing menstrual cycles the same as every other girl my age. So I experienced a lot of discomfort in that department when I didn't have access to a student assistant. I also really struggled with keeping up in class. I mean, I can write. I'm the little engine that could, but the little engine that could needed a little help. So I was set up with a classmate who would give me the notes. Her name was Christy, and she was a lovely girl, and she still is, and she took the best notes, and I'm very grateful for her. Things were definitely different, but I adjusted to that setup pretty quickly. As the schoolwork started getting more serious and assignments were due, I had a tough time getting things finished. I think it was about grade 9, and I was given an iPad by the Bell Alliant Pioneers to help with classwork and assignments, and that was a complete game changer. I don't know if the Bell Alliant Pioneers are still active here in Springdale, but they were an excellent organization. Springdale is small enough that when I did start wanting to go out with friends, my mom and my stepfather at the time were comfortable having me go up to the store with friends or go down to the playground at night. My friends did what they needed to do so I could get in equal amounts of trouble. They learned how to help me with toileting, changing my clothes, getting in and out of vehicles, and even up and down over steps once in a while if we really needed to. Some of them also learned to give me a bath, so I was able to stay at their house for an extended time during breaks at school or during the summer. A few of their moms even were like, "How can I help?" And they also learned how to help me. I was so lucky to find people just as stubborn as I was. It was about grade 10 when our friend group started to change. The friends who were around me all the time started to hang out with new people from classes that I didn't take, and I did the same, of course. The whole dynamic was shifting. I don't do well with change. As I mentioned, I made new friends in drama because I was the only grade 10 in that class for the year. That's because the alternative was workshop, and I don't think I would have did very good in that class. So we were all hanging out with different people, but the normal that I was so accustomed to was changing a lot. My friends, both new and old, were going to different parties and going on trips that weren't necessarily accessible to me. Everyone was expanding their circles, and this is when we were all really starting to find out who we were as individuals. I was surrounded by people who started romantic relationships. Some were finding jobs and joining different extracurricular activities. I started feeling really lonely. I was getting less invites to go out. The people my age who were attracted to me and interested in me romantically didn't want anybody to know. They were ashamed of it. I definitely wasn't looking for a part-time job because of stigma and the availability to positions that I could succeed at. And extracurricular activities were mainly sports, and again, I don't think I would have did very good at that. There was a drama club that I wanted to join, but there was no after-school bus. And my wheelchair is much too large to go in a standard vehicle. Jason and Dana know that well.
That we do.
So I was the only person in the community that looked like me and did things how I was doing them, or I mean, at least that's how it felt. Around the same time, there was a lot going on at home. I was taking on many responsibilities with my siblings, and I felt the need to keep them protected from the things that were going on. My mom was very unhappy, and she struggled with a bunch of mental illnesses that went unchecked for a very long time. She dealt with her feelings with alcohol. It was the only way she knew to cope with her feelings. She watched the adults in her life do the exact same thing. Addiction is 100% inherited through generations, either because of epigenetics, you can look up that word if you'd like, or environmental experience, probably both. Mom's mind was in a really rough spot. She struggled every single day to the point that she felt the only solution to the problem was to make an attempt to take her life. She was hospitalized for a while and was put on the medication that she needed, thankfully. I was making sure the kids had their homework done, even if it meant I was a little built-in tutor. I was the emotional support for my siblings, but also my stepfather. Every night while Mom was in the hospital, after all the kids were gone to sleep, we would all sit at the table, me and Sean, and we would have a cup of tea, and we would talk about our day and how we were feeling. And sometimes we were lucky enough that we could check in with Mom and have a phone call with her. But that's also around the same time I started doing a lot of really reckless things. So during the day and right after school, it was my 5 beautiful siblings that were my priority. But after that, at night and on weekends, anytime I could get away from the house, I was doing a lot of things I never should have been doing. I felt a constant need to take care of the people around me and a constant desire to fit in. I was experimenting with alcohol myself, cigarettes. I even had a pregnancy scare. I was always skipping my classes, and I was in a slew of very toxic relationships. If there was a chance I'd feel better even for a short time, I would do it. It was like me and Mom were experiencing these really hard things parallel to each other, but we never actually connected on it. I am beyond proud of my mom. She's sober now. She's a 2-time homeowner and an absolute badass. If you see her in the community, give her a round of applause. She deserves it. She worked like hell to get to where she is now. Yeah. But for the remainder of high school, I was struggling mainly in secret. I wouldn't say anything at home because I knew how much the entire family was going through. I wasn't really close with anyone at this point. I wouldn't talk to my parents. And mind you, I had 4. I had my stepmom, my stepdad, mom, and dad, and then my grandparents too. But I had most of my friends pushed away as well. I wasn't going to talk to my siblings. I needed to be the strong one. There was only one person I would talk to, and she was the educational psychologist at my school. Miss Eaton is an actual angel on earth. She always reminded me that I needed to spend time being a kid. Now, not doing stupid stuff like I was, but, being a kid. And that I had support with her and with my friends. I reconnected with my friends, and although I was still feeling a lot of really big and heavy thoughts, I did find joy in being with my friends. Mom had come home from the hospital and decided she wasn't going to keep on that path. Again, real badass woman, if you ask me. So she took the 6 of us, packed us up, and we moved to Beachside. She was still struggling often, but it did set her up to start getting better. I decided to move in with my aunt. A lot of things were better at home, But I felt I needed more space from the situation to start prioritizing myself and where I was headed. I was in senior high, and it was time for me to start thinking about my future. So, in 2015, I graduated high school, which was 10 years ago. I left most of the reckless behavior in the past, the best I could anyway, and I was excited about the future. Where am I going to live when I move out? What program do I want to do? Which school should I apply for? I had so many plans and questions, but it didn't take long for that to tumble in on me too. I had to take a gap year for the program I had applied for and got accepted for in September. I was going to start college, and I was so excited. I wanted to go to post-secondary school. Always, always. You can ask Mr. Hancock. We had plans for a month, but that never felt like a real option. In the meantime, I looked into funding and how I was going to afford all of these big, exciting things. And there was funding, and it was going to cover everything. They were going to give me rent money, they were going to give me money for food, it covered everything. My aunt was willing to move to Grand Falls with me so that I could attend school. But the April before I was supposed to go, the funding got cut. The first big punch to my dreams happened during my 18th birthday. After checking the mail, I opened an envelope to find the income support application. I never requested it. I was supposed to be going to college and all that jazz, but I filed the paperwork anyway to have some kind of income for the time being. So again, like I said, flash forward to April, and the federal budget the provincial budget was released, and this funding was completely cut. Anybody who was in the program could complete that year, but that was it. So I had no other means to cover the costs. I didn't have time to do anything for student loans or anything like that. So I decided, okay, I just need to regroup. But I was crushed. I was devastated. I ended up feeling very depressed. Any hopeful and joyous questions I had prior, they were gone. I spent my days eating Cheerios, watching Degrassi and the Ellen DeGeneres show. I didn't care about much anymore. I stayed in my room most of the time, unless Aunt Suzanne would pull me to the living room to watch one of our recorded shows together. We used to really enjoy watching The Voice and wrestling and all that stuff, so we used to record it and we'd watch it at another time when we were able. The only other time I'd really leave the room was to go to Mom's for a few days. So I let myself stay in that place of self-pity and sadness and anger and self-doubt and all those negative, awful feelings for way longer than I'd care to admit. But one day there was just a little spark of hope. I saw a post that the Beachside Recreation Committee was looking for people. So I put my name in. I got on the team, and I was responsible for advertising. I started working on flyers, making sure they were put up around town and posted to social media. And I was also able to bring my ideas and my opinions forward as well. I had something to look forward to again. So rather than sitting in my room and eating Cheerios every day, I was excited to be working on the next poster. That spark started to create flankers. From there, I wanted to continue and I wanted to contribute to my community. I started putting together ideas that could work well in Beachside. Beachside is a retirement community, for those of you who don't know. Most of the population is 50 plus. They're having a few younger people move in now, which is really great to see, but for the most part, it's a retirement community. So I was really trying to come up with something that could work well in that demographic. So eventually I fixated on an evening group for people who wanted to be healthier. Thus, Waist Watchers was born. It was focused on maintaining a healthy weight, eating properly, moving your body, and it served as a reason for this group of people to get out and socialize in a town of very minimal population and even less reason to go out. I had a point system. We gave out prizes. There was a weekly goal. There was weekly no-nos, so unhealthy foods that you weren't allowed to eat for that week. You'd earn points for that, of course. So there was definitely an initiative system in place. And I had so much fun hosting that group. These ladies were some of my favorite people, and they still are. The further I got with Waist Watchers and the rec committee, I gained my confidence and sense of self. I felt purpose again. What started as a flanker turned into a small but mighty flame. I hosted this group once a week at the town hall. I called the town office once a month to book the hall for a group for 4 weeks at a time usually. I had many conversations with the clerk, whose name was Jennifer. She continuously told me that I should be getting paid to do things like Waist Watchers. That was something that was completely out of the realm of why I was doing it, so I kind of backburnered it. But the town of Beachside already had a client through Green Bay Community Employment Corporation. So she assured me she already knew how all of it worked. So after conversations with Jennifer, a lot of encouragement from her, some encouragement from Kim, they were confident that, we could do this. So I figured, what the heck, I'll give it a shot. Worst that can happen is I won't be able to stay, right? So I spoke with her the next time I called to make monthly reservations and told her I was interested. She brought it forward to the town council and they voted to have me come on as an employee. I was given an opportunity to work for the town council as the events coordinator. It started as 1 day a week, but that flame was getting stronger. And then it was 2 days a week. I did fundraisers, I did Waist Watchers, I hosted a week-long celebration that I called Beachside Week, a craft and trade show that brought about 1,300 people into Beachside. I did newsletters, and so many other things. That 2 days a week then started a forest fire. I started that job in May of 2019. I worked year-round, either in the office or from home because of the weather. They were super understanding, and the town hall sat on top of a very large hill. So in the winter, that was not wheelchair friendly. So they would allow me to work from home, which is great. By July of 2022, I was preparing to move back to Springdale into my very first apartment, all by myself. I'm eternally grateful that the town and Kim encouraged me to move forward with taking the job, and I'm so grateful that they were able to see the potential and the things that I could bring to the table. August 31st, 2022, I was officially moved in. I paid my rent for the first time, and I felt like my life as a real independent adult was finally beginning. I was terrified, but I was equally as excited. Was I going to get any subsidy to help with bills? How do I even pay a bill? Will I find a job? What are my home support hours going to look like? Am I going to be able to do this on my own? What kind of cleaners do I need? How do I set up a Revenue Canada account? How do I file unemployment? I was completely clueless. But I needed income, so I was in the process of getting income support while I was figuring things out. And don't even get me started on that process. It should not be as difficult as it is. So I had to start that as soon as I got to Springdale. The worst thing that could happen was I would have to go back to Beachside. And that really wasn't the end of the world. At least I tried. And I knew if I did go back to Beachside, I would have that opportunity to work there again and do Waist Watchers and all those fun things that I started to find a passion in. I had a wonderful home support worker. Home support workers also, I think they need a round of applause, please. Because they do not get enough recognition for everything they do for us. And I'm just gonna take a minute to say that Dylan and Dana, they're my 3 regular workers now. And they go above and beyond anything that's ever been expected of them. Dylan today was here helping me set up this beautiful display over here with the Fight for Access stuff on it. Dana has come to my house at 2 o'clock in the morning because I was throwing up. They go above and beyond anything that's expected of them, and I would not be able to live the life that I do without them. So thank you guys. So this wonderful home support worker gave me the security by being willing to help me in however I needed while I was figuring out how to adult. That adulting course that the Ice Cap did would have been real beneficial to me. I knew I was going to be okay, and I knew I had support. I got settled in my apartment, and very soon after that, I applied at the Ice Cap Center for what I didn't realize at the time was a student placement, which is not what I was looking for. That wasn't going to pay the bills. But Deidre was still interested anyway. So she wanted to give me a chance. So we decided that we would talk to Kim and we would get the paperwork started so that I could start working at the Ice Cap. So while we were waiting for the paperwork to be processed and approved, I did a short stint with GBCEC, and I was the event coordinator for the 20th anniversary, actually. So this is kind of full circle. I help with posters and advertising and social media and all that good stuff. All the stuff I'm really good at. So we just needed to wait for Kim to get the approval from the higher-ups. I finished my contract with GBCEC on a Friday, and I texted Deidre and I said, I'm ready to start, put me in, coach. And she asked me if I wanted to jump straight into another job or if I needed some time. I said, no, I'm ready, I'm coming. You'll never work in a better, more supportive environment than the Ice Cap. I've been given everything I need to succeed at the center. I have an adjustable desk. I was provided a raised toilet seat, which was eventually upgraded to a proper height toilet. The box had a wheelchair symbol on it, and I was way too excited over a toilet. I didn't even realize that some of that would be so beneficial to me. During my time working at the Ice Cap, I've gone from doing posters to being in charge of the summer camp program this past summer. This part's a bit emotional, so I'm just going to read directly off the page. I have been with the Ice Cap for almost 4 years now. The life skills I have learned in this time have definitely been crucial to how I've succeeded. The compassion I've gotten has given me security, and the youth that I get the absolute pleasure of working with, they give me purpose. I have made lifelong friendships with coworkers who I would have never met otherwise. Deidre's like another mom. She's always asking me if I've taken my pills. And if I'm drinking water, yeah, I do. My time at the Ice Cap has been so precious to me, and I wouldn't change it for the world, even when the kids are being little shitheads. Since moving back to Springdale, I've moved what feels like 1,000,000 times, right, Cedar Gang?
Tell me about it.
They've helped me move 4 times? 3 times? 4 times.
4 times.
A lot of times in the short amount of time I've been back in Springdale. It was for a bunch of different reasons, but even through that, I felt so much joy, and I've built something with a very dear friend of mine, Sarah Willis, and that is Fight for Access. We started a nonprofit organization out of a passion and some frustration, of course. We had a conversation about the lack of accessibility all across the province. and the need for change. Fight for Access was officially incorporated on June 5th, 2023. Sarah is in BC now, but I still call her to run things by her because it feels wrong not to. So even with a 4.5 hour time difference, we can get on the phone and be talking Fight for Access for like hours. And sometimes that means I'm up really late on a work night. I've recently been diagnosed with bipolar disorder in the last year, which makes the reckless behavior make a lot more sense. If I didn't get that job in Beachside, I would have never accomplished so much in such a short time. Maybe I would have drowned in sadness because I wasn't getting the proper help I needed, and I didn't notice it for a really long time. Fight for Access wouldn't exist. I would have never built the beautiful family I have of friends and chosen family. My life would be astronomically different. I would go back and do every painful thing all over again if it meant that I got to be right here today. I had everything I've ever dreamed of, things that I thought I would never have that were always so out of reach. I have a job that I love, friends and chosen family who support me in every endeavor, no matter how big or small. Sometimes they're here setting up a booth for 2 hours. I have a boyfriend who loves me. I'm renting an entire house that has an office in it for Fight for Access. I have a dog, a very goofy dog, mind you, who's constantly making me laugh, and my 2 extremely spoiled cats. Cats have staff, just so you all know. People with disabilities have dreams and desires the same as typical people. We have potential, and we have had to fight tooth and nail throughout history to be allowed to pursue a real, meaningful life. Employment is a barrier that a lot of people with disabilities face, especially here in rural Newfoundland. Sometimes we aren't taken seriously. Sometimes it's the stigma towards people with disabilities, as Alyssa mentioned when she was speaking. Sometimes it's a lack of funding for the nonprofits who do employ us. If you come up after and take a look at the list of supported employers, there are a lot of them who are nonprofits. So in the last 2 years, we've been experiencing a lot of big cuts. We had a cut of more than $16 million to the entire supported employment sector throughout the entire province. And then supported employment NL was placed under review by a company in Ontario. Since that was finalized, we've seen more cuts again. This funding source is vital for me and many of my friends in the disability community. If the cuts keep happening, we will lose jobs. We will lose sight of purpose, and we will rely on government assistance to stay afloat. In order to keep this program up and running to support the disabled population, we need to speak up about this issue and call it what it is. It's a crisis. We already have things tougher than typical people. So why is it that there are typical people in a completely different part of the country trying to manage and make cuts from a budget that, 1, they don't rely on, and 2, they don't understand the demographic for it? Right now, organizations like Fight for Access and GBCEC are immensely important as both parties are strong advocates against these budget cuts and are strong advocates for what is best for people with disabilities. Now, there's no pressure. I'm just going to throw in a little shameless promo here. I did bring in the Fight for Access donation jar. So if anybody is interested, it's back there in the display that we have set up. If you can't donate, that is totally fine. If you'd like more information or you want to volunteer with us, I have business cards and stuff back there too. Together, we can create not only a workforce without barriers, but a community, province, and country without barriers. A big thank you to Kim for having me here tonight. A big thank you to everyone who came out to make this so successful. Like, this is the biggest group of people I've ever talked in front of, and it's kind of scary, I'm not gonna lie. Thank you to every single person who has been with me, either in the passenger seat or from the sidelines. I see you, and I appreciate you more than I could ever know how to express.